A widower billionaire forgot his daughter's first birthday, but a maid's play in the rain changed everything. The penthouse suite of the Morrison Tower stood like a crystal cage above Manhattan, all glass and steel and calculated distance from the world below. James Morrison moved through its rooms like a ghost haunting his own life, his footsteps echoing against marble floors that had never known the warmth of a real home. At 34, James had everything the world measured as success. His tech empire had revolutionized cloud computing, making him a billionaire before his 30th birthday. But success, he'd learned, was a poor substitute for the life that had been stolen from him 15 months ago. His wife, Catherine, had died bringing their daughter into the world. One life traded for another, the doctors had said, as if it were a simple transaction. As if his heart hadn't been ripped from his chest and buried alongside the only person he'd ever truly trusted. Now, little Emma existed in the same space as her father but occupied an entirely different world. At 1 year old, she was cared for by a rotating staff of nannies, each as interchangeable as the last. James couldn't bear to look at her for more than a few seconds. Those same blue eyes, that same delicate nose. Emma was Catherine's mirror, and every glance felt like pressing on a wound that refused to heal. "Mr. Morrison, the quarterly reports are ready for your review." His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. James didn't respond. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, watching rain begin to spatter against the glass. Somewhere in this vast apartment, Emma was probably crying. She was always crying. The nanny said it was normal that babies cried. But to James, it sounded like an accusation. The newest nanny had quit yesterday. That made 7 in 12 months. HR would find another. They always did. Someone young and eager, willing to tolerate his coldness for the prestige of working for James Morrison. Someone who would eventually realize that prestige didn't keep you warm at night and wouldn't make a broken man acknowledge your existence. "Sir, there's a woman here from the domestic agency." His assistant tried again. "For the childcare position?" "Send her away," James said flatly. "Tell them to send someone with actual qualifications this time." "Sir, this is the 3rd candidate they've sent this week. Perhaps you might." "I said send her away." But his assistant, bless her persistent soul, had already sent the woman up. The elevator chimed, and James turned with irritation already hardening his features. He expected another 22-year-old with a degree in early childhood education and stars in her eyes about working for a billionaire. Instead, he found himself looking at someone completely different. She was 28, though life had clearly taught her lessons that aged her eyes beyond her years. She wore a simple navy dress and flats, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry except for a small silver cross at her throat. She carried a worn bag and an umbrella that had seen better days. What struck him most was that she didn't look impressed. She looked tired. "Mr. Morrison," she said, her voice steady and warm despite the coolness of his stare. "My name is Sofia Ramirez. I'm here about the nanny position." "You're wasting your time," James said, already turning back to the window. "I need someone with credentials, experience with high-profile families, impeccable references." "I have all of those things," Sophia replied calmly. "I worked for the Ashford family for 3 years, the Chens for 2 before that. I have a master's degree in child psychology, I'm CPR certified, and I speak 3 languages. Would you like to see my references, or would you prefer to keep making assumptions?" James turned slowly.
People didn't speak to him like that.
People who worked for him certainly didn't speak to him like that. "The position requires long hours," he said coldly. "Discretion. The ability to manage without supervision because I won't be involved in day-to-day childcare decisions." "You mean the position requires raising your daughter while you pretend she doesn't exist?" The words hit him like a physical blow. His jaw tightened. "Get out."
"No."
"Excuse me?" Sophia set her bag down deliberately, meeting his eyes with a steadiness that was almost unnerving. "I said no. I didn't come here to be dismissed by a man who's too afraid to face his own child. I came here because your assistant called our agency crying, saying that little girl has had 7 nannies in a year and deserves better." You have no idea what you're talking about, don't I? Sophia's voice softened, but didn't lose its strength. I know what it's like to lose everything. I know what it's like to wake up every morning wishing you hadn't. I know what it's like to build walls so high that even love can't reach you. And I know that somewhere in this fortress you've built, there's a baby girl who didn't ask to be born, didn't ask to lose her mother, and definitely didn't ask for a father too broken to hold her. James felt something crack in his chest, a hairline fracture in the armor he'd maintained for 15 months. You don't know anything about my daughter. Then tell me, Sophia challenged. Tell me about Emma. Her name is how I know anything. James's voice was rough, scraped raw. That's all I know. The nannies handle everything else. When's her birthday? The question hung in the air like an indictment. James opened his mouth, then closed it. His mind went blank. He knew it was soon. He knew it had to be soon because Catherine had died in February, and it was February now, and tomorrow, Sophia said softly, reading the horrible realization dawning on his face. Your daughter's first birthday is tomorrow, Mr. Morrison. And you forgot. The rain against the windows grew heavier, drumming against the glass like an urgent heartbeat. In the silence that followed, James heard something else. The sound of Emma crying from somewhere deep in the apartment, a lonely sound that pierced through everything he'd built to keep the world at bay. I'll stay tonight, Sophia said, picking up her bag. No pay, no contract. Just tonight, to make sure Emma has at least one person who shows up for her birthday. Tomorrow, you can decide if you want to keep hiding or if you want to try being her father. She didn't wait for his response. She simply walked past him, following the sound of Emma's cries with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where she was needed. James stood frozen at the window, watching the rain, feeling the walls he'd built beginning to tremble. Sophia found Emma in the nursery at the east end of the penthouse, a room that looked like it had been designed by someone who'd never actually met a child. Everything was pristine white and pale pink, more showroom than sanctuary. The crib was a modern sculpture of sustainable bamboo and organic cotton. The toys were educational and expensive, still in their packaging. And in the middle of it all sat Emma, red-faced and sobbing, her small hands gripping the bars of her crib like a prisoner. The current nanny, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, sat in the corner scrolling through her phone with the defeated air of someone counting down the hours until freedom. Oh, thank God, the woman said when Sophia entered. Are you the replacement? Because I'm done at 6, and honestly, I'd leave now if I could. Sophia ignored her, walking straight to the crib. Emma's crying hitched when she saw the new face, uncertainty replacing despair for just a moment. Hello, sweet girl, Sophia said softly, reaching down. I'm Sophia. Is it okay if I pick you up? Emma stared at her with those devastating blue eyes, her mother's eyes, clearly, then lifted her arms in the universal language of a child who desperately needed to be held. Sophia scooped her up, and Emma immediately buried her face in Sophia's shoulder, her tiny body shaking with leftover sobs. She smelled like baby shampoo and tears and something indefinable that tugged at Sophia's heart. When did she last eat? Sophia asked the nanny. She had a bottle at 3. It's almost 6. She's hungry. Sophia looked around the pristine room. Where's her food? Kitchen. But she's picky. Throws most of it. Because she's 1 year old and probably needs someone to actually sit with her while she eats, Sophia said, trying to keep the judgment from her voice and failing. The nanny shrugged. Not my problem after 6 o'clock. Good luck. You'll need it. After the woman left, Sophia carried Emma through the apartment, trying to get her bearings. The place was enormous, probably 6,000 square feet, but it felt empty. No photos on the walls. No warmth. Just expensive furniture and the echo of their footsteps. The kitchen was all stainless steel and marble, looking like it had never been used. Sophia found Emma's bottles and baby food in a separate refrigerator, everything labeled and dated with military precision. She settled Emma into her high chair and warmed a jar of sweet potato and apple puree. Emma watched her with solemn eyes, her crying reduced to occasional hiccuping breaths. I bet you're tired of strangers, aren't you? Sophia said conversationally as she tested the temperature on her wrist. 7 nannies in a year. That's a lot of new faces, a lot of different hands. No wonder you cry. She offered Emma a spoonful. The baby turned her head away. Not hungry? Or not trusting? Sophia set the spoon down and pulled her chair closer. I get it, Emma. I really do. When I was 7, my mama died. Cancer. And afterward, I lived with 5 different families before I turned 18. Foster care, they called it. But really, it was just a lot of people who looked after me without really seeing me. Emma's eyes remained fixed on Sophia's face, as if she understood more than words could carry. The thing is, Sophia continued, babies are smarter than people think. You know your daddy's scared. You know something's wrong. And you know that everyone who holds you eventually leaves. This time when Sophia offered the spoon, Emma opened her mouth. There we go, Sophia smiled.
See?
Sometimes we just need someone to stick around long enough to earn it. They fell into a rhythm, spoon, wait, smile, repeat. Emma ate half the jar before starting to fuss, which Sophia counted as a victory. She cleaned the baby's face gently, then carried her to the windows. The storm had intensified, rain lashing against the glass in sheets. Lightning flickered in the distance, illuminating the city below in brief, stark flashes. Pretty, isn't it? Sophia murmured. My mama used to say that rain was God's way of washing the world clean, giving everything a fresh start. Emma's head rested against Sophia's shoulder, her body finally relaxing. Tomorrow's your birthday, sweet girl. 1 whole year in this world. 1 year of being strong and surviving, even when everything's been hard. That deserves celebrating, don't you think? She walked through the apartment until she found what had to be James's study. Dark wood, leather chairs, and walls lined with books that looked unread. The man himself sat behind an enormous desk, staring at a laptop screen without really seeing it. He looked up when they entered, and Sophia watched something complicated cross his face.
Pain.
Longing.
Fear.
She's fed, Sophia said simply. She needs a bath and bed. Where are her pajamas? I don't, James started, then stopped. The nanny handles all that. Well, tonight I'm the nanny, and I'm asking you, where does your daughter sleep, and in what? James stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. For a moment, Sophia thought he might order them both out. Instead, he walked past them without a word, and they followed him back to the nursery. He opened drawers with the hesitation of a man in unfamiliar territory, finally pulling out a soft pink sleeper decorated with tiny stars.
Thank you, Sophia said.
James nodded stiffly, already turning to leave. Mr. Morrison? Sophia's voice stopped him. I meant what I said earlier. I'm staying tonight, and tomorrow we're celebrating Emma's birthday. You're welcome to join us. Or you can keep hiding. But either way, your daughter deserves to know someone showed up for her. James's hand clenched on the doorframe. You think you understand this situation, but you don't. You can't. You're right, Sophia agreed. I can't understand your loss. But I understand hers. And right now, that's what matters. She watched him walk away, his shoulders rigid with tension, and felt a familiar ache in her chest. She'd seen this before. People so consumed by their own pain that they couldn't see the suffering right in front of them. But she'd also seen people find their way back. Emma whimpered, pulling Sophia's attention back to where it belonged. Let's get you ready for bed, birthday girl. And tomorrow we're going to make sure you have the best first birthday a little girl could have, even if it's just you and me. As she ran the bath water and gathered towels, Sophia made a mental list. She'd need to run out early for supplies, a cake, decorations, maybe a few simple presents. Nothing extravagant. Just something to mark the day, to tell Emma that her existence mattered. She bathed Emma gently, marveling at the trust the baby was already showing her. Children had a sixth sense about people. They knew who showed up with love and who was just going through the motions. After the bath, Sophia dressed Emma in the star-covered sleeper and settled into the rocking chair with a bottle. The baby's eyes grew heavy as she drank, her small hand curling around Sophia's finger with surprising strength. You're going to be okay, Emma, Sophia whispered. I promise you, sweet girl. One way or another, you're going to be okay. Through the window, the storm continued its assault on the city. But in the nursery, wrapped in Sophia's arms, Emma finally found peace enough to sleep. And down the hall, James Morrison sat in the dark, listening to the rain and wondering when he'd become the kind of man who could forget his own daughter's birthday. Sophia woke to silence. For a moment, disoriented in the unfamiliar room, she thought she'd dreamed the entire previous evening. Then Emma stirred in the crib beside her, and reality settled back into place. She'd fallen asleep in the rocking chair after putting Emma down, too exhausted to find wherever the staff slept. Sometime in the night, someone, James, she assumed, had left a blanket draped over her shoulders. The gesture surprised her. Small, but it suggested he wasn't as far gone as he pretended. Early morning light filtered through the windows, pale and tentative after the storm. The city sprawled below, washed clean and glittering. Sophia checked her phone. 6:47 a.m. February 14th, Valentine's Day, and Emma's first birthday. Emma was still sleeping, her small chest rising and falling peacefully. Sophia allowed herself a few minutes to simply watch her. This beautiful child who'd been born into loss, who'd spent her first year of life surrounded by strangers, who deserved so much more than the cold fortress her father had built around his grief. Moving quietly, Sophia slipped out of the nursery. The apartment was silent, but she found signs of life. A coffee mug in the kitchen sink, still warm. A light on in the study. James was awake, probably had been all night. She made herself a coffee and began taking inventory. The kitchen was professionally stocked but impersonal. No birthday candles. No cake pans. Nothing that suggested celebration or joy or the simple act of marking time. Sophia pulled out her phone and made a list. Balloon, small cake from the bakery downstairs, a few simple presents. She'd have to run out, which meant waking James to watch Emma. The thought almost made her laugh. The billionaire father babysitting his own daughter as if it were an extraordinary request. She found him in his study, still wearing yesterday's clothes, surrounded by papers he clearly hadn't been reading. He looked up when she entered, and she was struck by how exhausted he appeared. Not just physically tired, but soul-deep weary. I need to run out for a few things, Sophia said without preamble. For Emma's birthday. I'll be gone maybe an hour. James's jaw tightened. Call one of the staff. It's 7 a.m., and it's your daughter's birthday. You can watch her for an hour. I'll have something delivered. Whatever you need. Sophia set her coffee down carefully, fighting the urge to throw it at him. Mr. Morrison, I'm going to be very clear with you. I didn't sign a contract. I'm not on your payroll. I don't need this job. What I need is for you to spend 60 minutes in the same room as your daughter without running away.
Can you do that?
You don't understand. I understand that you're afraid, Sophia interrupted, her voice gentle but firm. I understand that looking at her hurts because she reminds you of what you lost. But she lost something too, Mr. Morrison. She lost her mother, and every day you hide from her, she loses her father a little bit more. James stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. He crossed to the window, his back rigid. My wife died, so Emma could live. Every time I look at her, I see Catherine's face. I see what was taken from me. No, Sophia said softly. You see what was given to you. Catherine didn't die so Emma could live. Emma lived despite losing Catherine. Your wife gave you a gift, Mr. Morrison, and you're treating it like a curse. The words hung in the air between them, sharp and true. 1 hour, Sophia continued. I'll be back before she even realizes I'm gone. All you have to do is exist in the same space as her. You don't have to play. You don't have to talk. Just be there. James turned slowly, and Sophia saw something cracking in his expression. What if I can't? Then you'll learn that you can survive it, Sophia said. And maybe next time, it won't be quite so hard. That's how healing works, Mr. Morrison. One impossible moment at a time. She didn't wait for his agreement. She simply collected her coat and bag, wrote down her number on a notepad, and headed for the elevator. As the doors closed, She saw James standing in the hallway, looking toward the nursery, like a man approaching a battlefield. The bakery downstairs was just opening when Sophia arrived. She ordered a small vanilla cake with pink frosting, simple and sweet. The florist next door provided a single balloon, pink with silver stars. At the toy store on the corner, she found a soft stuffed bunny and a set of stacking cups. Nothing extravagant. Nothing that screamed money or excess. Just simple things chosen with love. She was back in 45 minutes, her arms full of packages. The apartment was quiet when she entered, and for a terrible moment, she feared James had called another nanny, or worse, left Emma alone. Then she heard it, a voice rough and uncertain, coming from the nursery. Sophia set down her packages and walked quietly down the hall. James sat on the floor beside Emma's crib, looking completely out of place in his $1,000 suit on the plush carpet. Emma stood gripping the crib bars, staring down at him with intense curiosity. "I don't know what I'm supposed to say to you," James was telling her, his voice raw. "Your mother, she would have known. Catherine knew everything about how to love people. She was good at it, being warm, being present. I was always the cold one, the one who kept everyone at a distance." Emma babbled something, her version of conversation. "You look just like her," James continued, and Sophia heard his voice crack. "You have her eyes. Her nose. When you smile, the nanny showed me a video once, before I told her to delete it. When you smile, it's Catherine's smile." He reached up, his hand hovering near Emma's where she gripped the bars. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry, Emma.
You deserved better than this. Better than me."
Emma, with the fearless wisdom of a child who didn't yet know to be afraid, reached out and grabbed her father's finger. James froze, staring at their joined hands like he'd never seen anything so miraculous. A sound escaped him, half laugh, half sob, and he closed his eyes against the wave of emotion. "Happy birthday, Emma," he managed. 1 year old. 1 year of being stronger and braver than your father. Sophia backed away quietly, giving them privacy for this moment. In the kitchen, she began setting up the birthday celebration, her own eyes damp with tears. Maybe there was hope here after all. When she returned to the nursery 20 minutes later, she found James sitting in the rocking chair, Emma in his arms. The baby was chattering happily, pulling at his tie, and James was watching her with an expression of wonder and terror. "I didn't know she was so," he started, then trailed off. "Real," Sophia suggested gently. "Heavy," James said, but he was smiling slightly. "I thought babies were lighter." "She's been growing without you noticing," Sophia said, without judgment. "They do that. Change every day." James looked up at her, and Sophia saw gratitude and shame warring in his expression. "Thank you for making me do this." "Thank yourself," Sophia replied. "You're the one who stayed." Emma reached for Sophia, and James transferred her carefully, as if she were made of glass. "I got everything for her birthday," Sophia said. "Just small things. I thought we could celebrate after her nap. Maybe you'd want to join us." She expected him to refuse, to retreat back into his study. Instead, James surprised her. "Could I help?" he asked quietly. "Set things up, or whatever needs doing?" Sophia smiled. "I think Emma would like that very much." The transformation of the penthouse's massive living room into a birthday celebration took less than an hour, but it felt like a small revolution. Sophia had commandeered the space with the ease of someone who'd learned to make homes out of nothing. She pushed the minimalist furniture aside, creating an open area covered with soft blankets. The single pink balloon floated above, tethered to a chair. The small cake sat on the coffee table, one candle waiting to be lit. James watched from the doorway, feeling like an intruder in his own home. Or maybe, for the first time in 15 months, feeling like the space could actually become a home. "It's not much," Sophia said, catching his expression. "But sometimes the best celebrations are the simple ones." "It's perfect," James heard himself say, and was surprised to find he meant it. Emma had woken from her nap in good spirits, babbling and reaching for everything. Sophia had changed her into a little white dress with pink flowers, something James vaguely remembered Catherine ordering before she died, part of a nursery full of clothes Emma had grown into without him noticing. Should I? James gestured awkwardly at Emma. Hold her or? However you're comfortable, Sophia said. There's no wrong way to celebrate with your daughter, Mr. Morrison. James, he said quietly. You should call me James. Something shifted in Sophia's expression. Approval, maybe, or hope. Okay, James. Why don't you sit on the blanket, and I'll put Emma down. She's just learning to cruise, so she'll probably try to walk around the furniture. James lowered himself to the floor with the stiff movements of a man unused to sitting anywhere without a leather chair. Sophia placed Emma on the blanket near him, and the baby immediately began her exploration, pulling herself up on the coffee table, bouncing on her chubby legs. Catherine and I used to talk about this, James said suddenly, watching Emma grab for the balloon string. Her first birthday. Catherine wanted to have a huge party, invite everyone. I thought it was excessive. The baby wouldn't even remember it. We argued about it, actually. He laughed, a sound rusty from disuse. She was right, of course. She said it wasn't about Emma remembering. It was about us remembering. About marking the moment, celebrating that we'd all survived the first year together. She sounds like she was wonderful, Sophia said softly. She was everything, James replied, and the words didn't hurt quite as much as they usually did. She made me better. Made me want to be better. When she died, it felt like all the good parts of me died with her. Emma plopped down on her bottom, distracted by the stuffed bunny Sophia had brought. She hugged it to her chest, making happy sounds. But she left you, Emma, Sophia pointed out. Which means the good parts of her are still here. Still growing. James watched his daughter cuddle the bunny and felt something crack open in his chest. I've wasted so much time. You've survived, Sophia corrected gently. That's not nothing. And now you're here. That's what matters. She pulled out her phone. Should we document this? Her first birthday should have at least one photo. James hesitated, then nodded. Sophia snapped a picture of Emma with her bunny, then moved closer. Come on, get in the frame. Birthday girl needs her father in the photo. It felt awkward and forced, James leaning into the shot while Emma examined her new toy. But when Sophia showed him the result, James felt his throat tighten. There they were, father and daughter, together in the same frame for maybe the first time ever. Can you send me that? He asked quietly. Of course. Emma chose that moment to crawl toward James, using his knee to pull herself up. She stood there, wobbly but determined, grinning up at him with 4 tiny teeth showing. I think she wants you to help her walk, Sophia said. James carefully took Emma's hands, and she immediately started stepping, her face bright with concentration and delight. They moved across the blanket in slow, careful steps, Emma laughing every time she managed to stay upright. That's it, Emma, James encouraged, his voice catching. You're doing so well. They made it across the blanket and back, Emma clearly proud of herself. When James lowered her back down, she immediately tried to climb into his lap, as if sitting with him was the most natural thing in the world. She trusts you, Sophia observed. Already. She shouldn't, James said, but he wrapped his arms around Emma anyway, holding her close. I don't know how to do this. Be a father. Be present. Nobody knows how at first, Sophia assured him. You just show up, day after day. Make mistakes. Learn. Try again. She lit the single candle on the cake, the small flame dancing in the afternoon light. Ready to sing? They sang, Happy Birthday together, Sophia's voice clear and warm, James's rough and uncertain. Emma watched the flame with wide eyes, entranced. Make a wish for her, Sophia said. Even though she can't blow it out yet. James looked at his daughter, really looked at her, maybe for the first time. 1 year old. A whole person, with preferences and personality and potential. Catherine's gift. His responsibility. His second chance. I wish I could be the father she deserves, he thought. I wish I could be brave enough to try. He blew out the candle. Emma got frosting everywhere. In her hair, on her dress, smeared across her face. She was delighted with the mess, laughing as she squished cake between her fingers. James found himself laughing too, really laughing, at the pure joy of her chaos. "You're a disaster," he told her fondly, and she beamed at him like he'd said something wonderful. Sophia captured it all on her phone. Emma covered in cake, James's rare smile, the simple happiness of the moment. "These are the memories you'll want later," she said. "The messy, imperfect, real ones." After cake, they gave Emma the stacking cups, which she immediately knocked over and then crowed with delight. James showed her how to stack them, his large hands dwarfing the colorful plastic, and Emma watched intently before destroying his work again. "She's going to be trouble," James observed, but there was affection in his voice. "She already is," Sophia agreed. "Look at her, barely a year old and already making her father smile. That's powerful stuff." The afternoon stretched into evening, the celebration evolving into simply being together. At some point, Emma climbed into James's lap and fell asleep, her frosting sticky hands clutching his shirt, her head heavy against his chest. James sat very still, afraid to move and wake her. "This is good," Sophia said softly. "You're doing really well." "I'm just sitting here." "You're holding your daughter while she sleeps. You're giving her security and warmth and presence. That's everything, James." He looked down at Emma, at her peaceful face and complete trust, and felt the walls he'd built beginning to crumble. "What if I mess this up? What if I can't maintain this?" "You will mess up," Sophia said honestly. "Every parent does. But the fact that you're worried about it means you care. And caring is half the battle. What's the other half? Showing up. Every day. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." James shifted carefully, trying not to wake Emma. "Why did you really come here, Sophia? You could work anywhere for anyone. Why take a job with someone as broken as me?" Sophia was quiet for a moment, her gaze distant. "Because I know what it's like to grow up without someone showing up. I know what it's like to be the kid everyone's too damaged to love properly. And I thought maybe, if I could help one child not feel that way, it would matter." "It matters," James said quietly. "What you did today, what you're doing, it matters more than you know." The sun was setting, painting the city in shades of orange and pink. Emma slept on, secure in her father's arms, surrounded by the remnants of her first birthday celebration. "Thank you," James said, looking at Sophia with genuine gratitude, "for not giving up on us." Sophia smiled. "The day's not over yet. Let's not count our victories before bedtime." But as James carried Emma to the nursery for her bath, still covered in cake and completely content, he felt something he hadn't felt in 15 months. Hope. 3 weeks passed, and the penthouse slowly transformed. Not in dramatic ways. There were no grand gestures or sudden revelations. But small things changed, accumulating like drops of water, wearing away stone. A photo appeared on the refrigerator. Emma and James from her birthday, both smiling. Then another, from a morning when Emma had covered them both in oatmeal. Then more, a growing gallery of moments captured and kept. James started coming home earlier. Not early, not by normal standards, but by 7 p.m. instead of midnight. He'd find Sophia and Emma in the nursery or the living room, and he'd stay. Sometimes he'd just watch. Sometimes he'd sit on the floor and let Emma climb on him. Sometimes he'd read her stories in his halting way, still uncertain but trying. Sophia had officially accepted the position, but it felt less like employment and more like witnessing a resurrection. She saw James struggling against years of conditioning that told him to stay distant, to protect himself. But she also saw him winning, inch by inch. She said, "Dada today," Sophia told him one evening when he arrived home. James froze in the doorway, his briefcase still in hand. "What?"
"Emma,"
she said,
clear as day.
"I have video." She pulled out her phone, and together they watched the clip of Emma pointing at James's photo on the refrigerator, saying "Dada," with perfect toddler confidence. James watched it 3 times, his expression unreadable. Then he set down his briefcase, walked to where Emma was playing with blocks, and knelt beside her. "Emma," he said softly, "can you say it again? Can you say dada? Emma looked up at him, considered for a moment, then grinned and returned to her blocks. Typical, Sophia laughed. They never perform on command. But later, when James picked Emma up for bedtime, she patted his face and said it. Dada. Sophia left them alone for that moment, hearing James's choked response through the door. Progress wasn't linear. There were still hard days when James retreated into work, when the weight of his grief pulled him under. There were evenings when he couldn't bear to read Emma her bedtime story, when the domesticity of it all felt like a betrayal of Catherine's memory. On those nights, Sophia didn't push. She simply took over, then found James afterward, usually in his study, staring at nothing. It's okay to still miss her, she'd say. Loving Emma doesn't mean forgetting Catherine. It feels like it does, James would reply. That's grief talking. The truth is, Catherine lives on through Emma. Through you remembering her. Through choosing to love even when it hurts. These conversations happened more frequently than Sophia had expected. James, it turned out, was starved for someone to talk to honestly. His friends had drifted away after Catherine's death, unable to handle his grief. His family had never been close. He'd built his empire alone, and apparently planned to grieve alone too. But Sophia didn't let him. Tell me about her, she'd say. Tell me about Catherine. And slowly, painfully, James would. Stories of how they met at a tech conference, how Catherine had told him his presentation was brilliant, but his people skills needed work. How she'd pursued him despite his coldness, seeing something in him worth excavating. How she'd made him laugh, made him want to be better, made him believe in love. She would have been an amazing mother, James said one night, the words coming easier now. She had it all planned, the schedule, the activities, the milestones. She had a whole journal of things she wanted to do with Emma. Do you still have it? Sophia asked. James nodded. I couldn't look at it. After she died, I put it away. Maybe it's time, Sophia suggested gently. Maybe it's time to see what Catherine wanted for Emma. For both of you. The next day, James brought the journal to the living room. It was leather-bound, filled with Catherine's neat handwriting. Sophia sat with Emma while James read, watching his face cycle through emotions, pain, joy, sorrow, love. She wanted to take Emma to the park every week, he read aloud. Rain or shine. She thought it was important for children to experience weather, to not be sheltered from the world. He looked up, and Sophia saw determination in his eyes. It's supposed to rain tomorrow. Heavy rain. Should we take Emma to the park? In the rain? Sophia asked, surprised. Catherine would have, James said simply. The next day dawned gray and threatening. By noon, rain was falling in sheets, the kind of downpour that sent people running for cover. Sophia dressed Emma in a tiny yellow raincoat and boots, while James pulled on clothes he probably hadn't worn in years. Jeans, a waterproof jacket, sneakers instead of his usual Italian leather. We're really doing this? Sophia asked, looking at the deluge outside. We're really doing this, James confirmed. They took James's private car to Central Park, the driver looking at them like they were insane. Maybe they were. But when they stepped out into the rain, Emma's face lit up with wonder. She'd never felt rain before. Never been allowed to experience weather in its raw, unfiltered form. The drops hit her face and she laughed, open-mouthed and delighted, trying to catch them. James set her down on the grass, holding her hands while she stomped in puddles. She shrieked with joy, splashing water everywhere, soaked within minutes and loving every second. Sophia pulled out her phone, capturing the moment. James, the billionaire tech mogul, on his knees in the mud, laughing while his daughter discovered rain. It was beautiful and absurd and perfect. Catherine was right. James called over the storm. This is important. Being present for the messy, uncomfortable, real moments. Emma fell, landing on her bottom in a puddle. For a second, she looked shocked. Then she started laughing, slapping the water with her hands, completely unconcerned about being wet or dirty. James picked her up, and she threw her arms around his neck, rain streaming down both their faces. I love you, he said, the words coming out raw and real. I love you, Emma. I'm so sorry it took me so long to say it. Sophia felt tears mixing with the rain on her own face. This was the moment. The breakthrough. The father finding his way back to his daughter through a storm. They stayed in the park for an hour, playing in the rain until all three were completely drenched. Emma was tireless, finding wonder in every puddle, every drop. James was transformed, the cold distance burned away by his daughter's pure joy. When they finally headed back, exhausted and soaking, James carried Emma the whole way. She fell asleep against his shoulder, worn out from adventure. In the car, Sophia handed James a towel. You did good today. We did good, James corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Yes, you could have, Sophia said honestly. You just needed someone to remind you that you could. James was quiet for a moment then. Sophia, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be honest. Okay. Are you planning to stay? Or is this temporary until I get on my feet? Sophia looked at Emma, sleeping peacefully in her father's arms. She looked at James, still learning to be present but trying so hard. She thought about the past 3 weeks, the hardest and most rewarding of her career. I'm planning to stay, she said. If you'll have me. Emma needs consistency, and honestly, I've gotten attached to both of you. Relief flooded James's features. Thank God. I don't think we could survive another change. But James, Sophia continued, I need you to keep showing up. Keep trying. Emma needs more than just me. She needs her father. I know, James said, looking down at his sleeping daughter. I'm not going to disappear again. I promise. When they got home, James insisted on bathing Emma himself. Sophia supervised, ready to help, but he managed, awkward and careful, but present. He dressed her in warm pajamas, read her a story, and put her to bed. When he emerged from the nursery, he looked exhausted but lighter somehow, as if he'd set down a weight he'd been carrying for too long. Thank you, he said to Sophia. For everything. For not giving up on us. For making me see what I was missing. You're welcome, Sophia replied. But the real work starts now. Showing up every day, even when it's not raining, even when it's boring, even when it's hard. I'm ready, James said, and this time, Sophia believed him. 6 months later, the penthouse had become unrecognizable. Not because of renovations or expensive redesigns, but because it had become lived in. There were toys scattered across the living room floor, blocks and books and stuffed animals. Finger paintings decorated the refrigerator. Photos covered every available surface, documenting Emma's daily adventures. The pristine showroom had transformed into a home. James stood in the kitchen early on a Saturday morning, attempting to make pancakes. He was terrible at it. They were either burnt or undercooked, but Emma didn't seem to mind. She sat in her high chair, banging her spoon and shouting, "Dada cake," with infectious enthusiasm. These are disasters, James told her, flipping another burnt offering onto a plate. Dada cake. Emma insisted happily. Sophia appeared in the doorway, already dressed for the day, smiling at the scene. How's breakfast going? Catastrophically, James admitted. But she seems to think I'm a chef. Everything tastes good when you're 18 months old, Sophia said, pouring herself coffee. Plus, it's not really about the pancakes. No, James agreed, meeting her eyes. It's not. In the months since that rainy day in the park, everything had changed. James had restructured his entire life around Emma. He worked from home 3 days a week. He left the office by 5 p.m. on the other days. He'd hired a co-CEO to handle the parts of the business that required constant attention, freeing himself to actually have a life. His board thought he'd lost his mind. His competitors thought he'd gone soft. James didn't care. He'd found something more valuable than another $1 billion or another successful product launch. He'd found his daughter and himself in the process. Emma threw a piece of pancake, and it landed in James's hair. She dissolved into giggles. You think that's funny? James asked, pulling the pancake out and pretending to eat it. You think Dada wearing breakfast is funny? Emma's laughter was pure and whole, the sound that had become James's favorite in the entire world. Sophia watched them with satisfaction. This was what she'd hoped for when she'd walked into this apartment 6 months ago. Not perfection, but presence. Not a fairy tale ending, but a real beginning. I have something to tell you both, Sophia said, setting down her coffee. James looked up, immediately alert to her serious tone. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Sophia assured him. Actually, everything's right. That's why I need to tell you this now. She sat down at the table, choosing her words carefully. I got a call yesterday from the Ashford family. They're moving back to New York from London, and they want me to come back to work for them. James felt his stomach drop.
Oh.
They're offering almost double what you're paying me, Sophia continued. Plus benefits, plus a signing bonus. The kitchen felt very quiet. Emma, sensing the shift in mood, stopped banging her spoon. I see, James said carefully, trying to keep his expression neutral even as panic rose in his chest. That's a great opportunity. It is, Sophia agreed. It's exactly the kind of position I've been working toward my whole career. Then you should take it, James said, the words costing him everything. You've already done so much for us. You deserve to advance your career, not stay here indefinitely. James. Seriously, Sophia. We'll be okay. You've taught me how to show up. How to be present. We can find another nanny, someone to help with the schedule, and I'll… James, stop, Sophia interrupted, a smile playing at her lips. I'm not taking the job. He stopped mid-sentence, staring at her. What? I'm not taking the job, Sophia repeated. I turned them down. But why? Sophia, that's a huge opportunity. You can't turn that down for us. Sophia reached across the table and took his hand. I'm not turning it down for you. I'm turning it down for me. Because I've realized something over these past 6 months. She glanced at Emma, who was watching them both with solemn eyes, as if she understood the importance of the moment. I've worked for a lot of families, Sophia continued. Rich families, famous families, families who had everything money could buy. But I've never been part of something like this. I've never watched someone heal the way you have, James. I've never helped build a family from broken pieces into something whole. Sophia. I'm not finished, she said, squeezing his hand. The Ashfords are lovely people, but they're not my family. You and Emma, somewhere along the way, this became my family. And I'm not ready to leave it. Not for any amount of money. James felt something crack in his chest, a final wall crumbling. Are you sure? I don't want you to sacrifice your career for us. I'm not sacrificing anything, Sophia said firmly. I'm choosing what matters. There's a difference. Sofa, Emma announced suddenly, pointing at Sophia. It was her attempt at saying Sophia's name, and it made them both laugh. Besides, Sophia added, someone has to make sure you don't burn down the kitchen with your pancake experiments. James laughed, real and full, and pulled Sophia into a hug. Thank you. For staying. For everything. Emma, not wanting to be left out, raised her arms. Up. Dada up. James scooped her up, and the three of them stood there in the kitchen, covered in pancake batter, holding each other. We're a weird little family, aren't we? James observed. The best ones usually are, Sophia replied. Later that afternoon, James took Emma to the park, their Saturday tradition now. Sophia had insisted he needed one-on-one time with his daughter, and though it had terrified him at first, James had grown to cherish these outings. Emma toddled ahead of him, stopping to examine every leaf, every rock, every dog. She'd inherited Catherine's curiosity and James's determination, a combination that meant she was constantly getting into everything. Emma, slow down, James called, jogging to keep up with her. She turned and grinned at him, her 4 teeth showing, then took off running again on her chubby toddler legs. They ended up at their usual spot, a bench near the pond where they'd come that rainy day 6 months ago. James sat while Emma played in the grass, chattering to herself in her own language. He pulled out his phone and looked at the photo that had become his wallpaper, the 3 of them from Emma's birthday, all smiling, all together. Then he opened the folder he'd created, filled with hundreds of photos from the past 6 months. Emma's first steps. Her first word. Their first park visit in the rain. Emma covered in spaghetti. Emma dressed as a pumpkin for Halloween. Emma opening presents at Christmas. Emma, 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 growing and changing and becoming more herself every day. And in so many of the photos, Sophia, not just as the nanny in the background, but as part of their family, reading to Emma, dancing with her, making funny faces to get her to smile, being present and wonderful and essential. James had fought against this feeling for months, telling himself it was gratitude, or respect, or simple appreciation for good childcare. But watching Sophia that morning, seeing her choose them over a better offer, he'd finally admitted what his heart had known for a while. He was falling in love with her. Maybe he'd been falling for months, so gradually he hadn't noticed. In the way she made Emma laugh. In her patience when he struggled. In her refusal to let him hide from life. In her warmth and strength and absolute presence. It wasn't the same as what he'd had with Catherine. Catherine had been his first love, his awakening, the person who'd shown him he was capable of connecting. What he felt for Sophia was different, built on shared struggle, on witnessing each other's worst moments and best efforts, on choosing every day to show up for each other and for Emma. Dada. Emma called, breaking his reverie. She'd found a dandelion and was bringing it to him like a treasure. "Thank you, baby," James said, taking the wilted flower like it was made of gold. "It's beautiful." Emma climbed into his lap, content to sit for a moment after her adventures. James held her close, breathing in the scent of her baby shampoo and grass and sunshine. "Your mama would be so proud of you," he whispered into her hair. "So proud of who you're becoming. And I hope she'd be proud of me too, for finally figuring out how to do this." Emma didn't respond with words, just patted his face with her small, slightly grubby hand. "I love you, Emma. More than I ever thought possible. And I promise you I'm going to keep showing up. Every day. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." They sat there for a long time, father and daughter, watching the pond and the people and the world continuing around them. When Emma finally started to get restless, James stood, lifting her onto his shoulders. "Should we go home?" he asked. "See what Sofa is making for dinner?" "Sofa." Emma agreed enthusiastically. Walking back through the park, Emma riding on his shoulders and chattering about everything she saw, James felt something he hadn't felt in nearly 2 years. Complete. Not healed. He'd never be fully healed from losing Catherine. But whole enough. Present enough. Brave enough. When they arrived home, they found Sophia in the kitchen, making Emma's favorite pasta. She looked up when they entered, and her smile was so warm, so genuine, that James felt his breath catch. "How was the park?" she asked. "Perfect," James said, and meant it. That night, after Emma was asleep, James found Sophia on the terrace, looking out at the city lights. He'd been thinking all afternoon about what to say, how to tell her what he was feeling. In the end, he kept it simple. "Sophia, can I ask you something?" She turned, curious. "Of course." "Why did you really stay?" "Not the official reason. The real one." Sophia was quiet for a moment, considering. "Do you really want to know?" "Yes." She moved closer until they were standing side by side at the railing. "I stayed because somewhere along the way, this stopped being a job. You and Emma became the family I'd been looking for my whole life. The home I'd never really had." "Just that?" James asked softly. Sophia looked at him, really looked at him, and James saw his own feelings reflected in her eyes. "Not just that," she admitted. "I stayed because I'm in love with you, James Morrison. I think I have been for months. And I know that's complicated and maybe inappropriate and probably not what you want to hear, but—" James kissed her. It was gentle and tentative, a question more than a statement. Sophia answered by kissing him back, her arms coming around his neck, and James felt something settle into place in his heart. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Sophia laughed. "That was unexpected, was it?" James asked, touching his forehead to hers. "Because I've been in love with you for months too. I was just too afraid to admit it." "Afraid of what?" "Afraid it was too soon. Afraid it meant forgetting Catherine. afraid of being happy again. And now I realize Catherine would want this for me. For Emma. She'd want us to have a full life, with love and joy and someone who shows up even in the rain. Sophia smiled, tears in her eyes. She sounds like she was an amazing person. She was, James agreed. And I'll always love her. Always miss her. But I love you too, Sophia. And I hope, there's room in my heart for both. There is, Sophia whispered. There's always room for more love. They stood there on the terrace, holding each other, as the city sparkled below, and somewhere inside, Emma slept peacefully, dreaming her toddler dreams. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was better, it was real. A family built from loss and love, from showing up and trying again, from choosing each other every single day. Inside, the monitor crackled to life with Emma's voice. Dada? Sofa. They looked at each other and laughed. She's calling for us, Sophia said. Both of us, James added, taking her hand. Our daughter is calling for both of us. Together, they went to Emma's room. She was standing in her crib, reaching for them with both hands. James picked her up, and Sophia stroked her hair, and Emma settled between them with a contented sigh. More rain? Emma asked hopefully, remembering their adventure. Tomorrow, James promised. Rain or shine, we'll go to the park tomorrow. All three of us. All three of us, Sophia echoed, and Emma smiled in her sleep. In the morning, it would rain again. But this time, instead of hiding from it, they'd run out to meet it together. All three of them, a family forged in storms and sunshine, bound by love that had learned to bloom even in the darkest soil. And somewhere, James liked to think, Catherine was smiling.